Hey everyone, we're back. It's Angela here and Andrea Cagenti as well. And I'm just strolling around my neighborhood with my little son in the seat, getting ready to talk all things self-directed education and spiritual living. And before we dive in, I guess I'll just ask Andrea if you want to do a brief introduction, if you have anything to share with us.
Hi, everyone. It's Andrea Cagenti. Yes, this is our 14th self-directed education / unschooling call. We like to use those terms interchangeably. I am outside today. It is super, super nice out. Yay for the warm weather. The Northeast is finally warming up. Don't really have any announcements, but this is a free call and we're doing this just to raise awareness and to build community for parents and educators that are already using child-led education or who are thinking about it, because it is quite a process. I know I put a post about parental healing and deschooling, which is probably the biggest aspect of this style of education, is the parents to relearn about education and learning, and kind of once the parents are able to change their mindset, you can really execute this, or you can go to a self-directed school and the facilitators can execute it, but it really comes down to a lifestyle. Angela and I both tend to take a spiritual approach. We met through a spiritual group, and that's just tends to be our take on this, but the execution and the style is the same regardless of what particular niche you follow.
Totally. You know what? My son's crawling out of the stroller right now, so I'm gonna have to grab him really fast, or he's just grabbing me, like, well, I just pulled her down.
Yes.
Hey baby, no, you gotta sit.
So Angela is walking on the call with her. Is he one yet? Did he have his first?
Yeah, he's 1.5.
One and
he's right.
Okay.
It's too hot, Eli. You're not gonna be able to do that. It's too hot.
Yeah. How is the weather today in California?
It's a super warm day.
Is it?
And he's wanting to push the stroller, but he doesn't have shoes on. It's gonna be too hot on his little feet. Yeah. So I don't know if there's a particular question that we could start with, or just whatever's coming up for us.
Topic. So I have a topic, if you're comfortable.
Sure. Yeah.
I put a post in the self-directed education group on Facebook, our kind of home for this. And the post was about children intrinsically wanting to help, and nurturing that intrinsic kind of natural want to be helpful. And it just, I loved the article from Peter Gray and I shared it. So I just wanted to see, maybe it would be something good to talk about if we have any tips, because when I had I don't know if I posted it, but my daughter, my sister, who's a public traditional school teacher, is always in awe that my daughter is always wanting to help. Like, oh, can I help? Can I help? Like, help do the dishes, help with gardening. And if I ask my daughter, like, oh, okay, auntie needs some help, and she says, yeah, sure, I love helping. And my sister is just kind of floored by that. She's like, wait a minute, why would she? And what, why would she be so eager to help? And I think it's the self-directed attitude that I have. So I just thought it would be a good talking point. And I have to put a disclaimer. She's not excited every single time with every single thing. But for the most part, in general, her attitude about helping is very welcoming, and she enjoys it.
Nice. Yeah, it brings up a lot of thoughts for me. I think that naturally, the way that human beings are wired is that we're wired for community and we're wired for connection. So part of that, I just smiled at my husband and pulled up. Here's a baby. So What? Can you not take him right this second? Okay, never mind. So yeah, like that's not something that we necessarily need to like instill or like teach people. I think it's just naturally part of being human. And we have this sort of, when we're connected, right? When we're conditioned to just be allowed to be who we are and feel what we're feeling, then we don't lose connection with that. And I think that naturally there will be times when you feel intrinsically motivated to garden alongside mom, or help sweep the floor. And I notice with young children, typically that's done in play. So it's like they're seeing mom and dad do this stuff, and from their lens everything is play, like everything's just like curiosity and fun. So they're like, well, how can I, like, it's literally not even about making the counter clean, and it's not even about getting the plants planted. It's just about they're doing something and it must be fun, because that's what I experience as life is like all about play. So they start to imitate the behavior. But when we go through the process of thinking that we need to teach children stuff, it's like disconnect with what you're actually feeling and substitute it for like a mental ideology, which is like, I should be doing this. This is how good people act. This is how helpful people act. And I think what ends up happening is when we disconnect from our natural beingness is, number one, what you talked about in the first place. Children start to, whoa, oh, there's so many distractions on this walk this time. It's not normally like this. Oh, okay. Someone jumped in the pool next to me and it made the weirdest noise. Okay. Well, so what you said earlier, like you don't want to help as much anymore, just because you're like, your soul literally doesn't like to play a role that's not real. And it gets draining and tired and you rebel against it. Naturally, that's wise. On the other hand, you might adopt fully an attitude that's not really who you are, and you become a people pleaser who wants to do everything that mommy or teacher or daddy wants you to do because you're so desperate for love and afraid of being rejected. That's also painful, though. That state of being is painful. There's something inside of us that says, I am disconnected in this state. It doesn't feel good. It's this inner turmoil, but it might come off on the surface less easy to spot than someone who rebels, because you're pleasing all the biases. So it just swings under the radar and the pain goes unnoticed. Anyhow, that's all I have to say on that for now.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I love your perspective. I think, I believe what you said, that it is natural. It's natural for children and most animals to just mimic the parents, right? So they mimic cleaning, and like you said, it's fun and it's play. And then you can just kind of naturally transfer that into, as they get older, to helping and contributing, and they are intrinsically, naturally are a part of the family, and they're important and they're helpful. And I think if we can keep that attitude and energy going, then you can have the child want, wholeheartedly want to be helpful, want to be a part of the family, and participate. But that's not to say that they're going to want to participate every single time. And I think a big caveat to that is to respect their boundaries. So if they're like, I just don't want to help right now, and to let that be. Because when we start to get into forcing them, or, we talk a lot about, the punishment or rewards, then you're, like my daughter at one point said, well, why don't, I help you all the time. Why don't you pay me for that? And I was like, oh, whoa, I didn't want to start relating her, her participating in the household with being paid. So we did not get into paying her for chores or paying her for, for helping. I felt that kind of goes against the intrinsic family kind of like teamwork approach that I foster.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, it's interesting. I like my kids being able to have their own money. I think that there's so much usefulness in having their own money. So it's an interesting balance to say, hey, like, I'm not going to pay you specifically for like helping with chores around the house. Maybe you get like an allotted amount um, per month so that you can learn to manage money and all the things that come along with that. But it's not specifically tied to like doing things. I like that.
I think your son agrees. He's given us the yes, yes. Yeah. And, you
Yeah.
know, that's what I ended up doing. I said, you know, helping is just part of being in the family. And, but if you're ready to have money and manage money, why don't we started off with like $5 a week. And we did that for quite a while, but then we kind of faded out of that when we were traveling. It was like, I want this $30 toy and I want this, you know, $20, this and that. But the $5 a week, we probably did that for a solid, you know, year or two, and that went well. And I love her having her own money, because when she asks me for things, I can say, "Oh, do you want to use your own money?" And most of the time, it's no. Are your kids similar with their own money, rather than if mom and dad are buying them things?
Yeah, I think that if they like had a choice, they would obviously not want it to come from their own money. We have 4 children, and I have to admit that I am not perfect in like my own lack beliefs and things like that. We have the way that I feel good now that makes me feel safe as a parent, like, is that you do get your allotted amount, and that's sort of like me budgeting. It's like, hey, this is how much I can budget to spend a month on my children for their own fun stuff. Like, they're whatever they want. They want a candy bar, they want Roblox or Robux or whatever inside their game. Like, you can buy that on whatever you want. Like, we've sort of allotted them an amount. And then they are like, there's a certain amount of minimal chores. It's not really even chores. It's like, hey, brushing your teeth in the morning and packing your lunch to school and things like that. Like, that's sort of like the morning routine, and that gives them the ticket into being able to do whatever they want with their time after that. But it's so minimal. It's not like they don't even have like dishes, or they put away folded laundry. I fold their laundry for them. And as they grow, that seems to like change naturally, like what they seem to be ready for in terms of chores. But it's held loosely. It doesn't really feel in my house like you have to do this, and when you do this, you're going to get paid. It doesn't have that feeling to it. It's more like, oh, we've just gotten so used to this routine that we all like make our bed and brush our teeth and take a shower or whatever if it's that day. And they're just like used to allowance too. They're like, oh, it's allowance day. We get our monthly allowance now. I don't know if that'll change though. Like, that's something that I don't necessarily like prescribe to anybody, because that's just what fit my life right now. And I'm open for that, like, to shifting if I feel differently one day. Like, oh, here's another thing. If they ask, like, if they really want something, and I like feel it with them, and I'm like, ooh, yeah. Like, typically I'll just be like, okay, there's totally exceptions to that. Or if they really want something, I'll like advance their allowance, like a loan type of a situation. And be like, yeah, let's map this out. I don't know. This is where we are now.
That's actually, now that I remember, that's what was happening with the $5 a week, is we just got so far into it. It was like, your $5 for the next month and a half went to this, whatever it was, Robux or stuffed animal or my daughter's favorite go-to kind of things. And then I was like, we just have to, this is not, you know, but the monthly sounds good, because that would encourage even more budgeting, you know. And I wonder, yeah, I like the once a month thing. And sometimes I just wait till my daughter brings stuff up. If she asks again, but of course, if it's fresh in my mind, I would bring it up to her as well. But it's nice to have money for fun. For them to follow their passions, right? That's what it's all about, following their heart and passions, and having that independence to do that is.
I kind of like that better personally, of like just letting things arise. I think a lot of like my budgeting came from being pretty financially strapped for a little bit. So it's a reflection of my own like wanting to feel safe. Like, I'm like, I want to make sure that I know how much money is going towards that. I think as I grow and I move out of that, I would much, if anyone's listening and like wanting to take advice, I'd much rather be able to just like be with whatever my child is feeling and wanting, and explore that rather than sticking to like a strict regimen of like, oh no, this is how much we spend a month. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but with multiple children, I would imagine, I remember how I was with my being one of four. I mean, it was all about fairness. Joe got $40 and I only got 20. Like everything came, we were all so tuned to how much everyone was getting. So with four, it might be better to keep it kind of, pretty standard, so that everybody feels that it's equal and fair and balanced.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting because I have multiple thoughts. Obviously, the financial aspect of children and money is something that I still am working through, because I have thoughts on that. It's like I do in my embodied state, like the way that I actually live, I'm a big fan of fairness. And that stems from my childhood. I was in a family of 5 and I was the oldest, and everything, oh my gosh, I was such a stickler to everything being so perfectly fair, down the line, down the middle, you know. And I look at my kids and sometimes like, maybe it's not about the dollar amount. Maybe it's more about just getting what you actually want, Like Christmas, I remember one year, I actually forget which kid or even which toy item it was. I just remember that one kid wanted a toy item that cost like nothing, and another wanted a really expensive toy item for Christmas. And I didn't think it was fair, and I didn't get the really expensive one. But the kids were at such an age that they weren't even looking at the dollar amount. And it honestly wouldn't have mattered. They wouldn't have known. Like, yeah. And so it makes me wonder if a lot of that is conditioning of fairness, of like being attached to actually the monetary amount, rather than realizing that what's fair is getting what you actually want. Like, not, you know what I mean? Not how much it costs. But how that plays out practically, I don't fully know. I'm just rolling through what's true for me right now.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, there's a lot of, there's many different ways to do it, and you can switch and flip flop. I don't think that there's one kind of standard, well, for self-directed families, then it would be, I think that anything goes. It's really just the attitude you bring to it. The attitude of presence, and whatever it is that's happening with them, to be there with them, to listen, to hear them, to acknowledge whatever it is they desire, whether it's toys or video games, to acknowledge them with their needs and desires. And it is probably good to have some type of strategy for them to get the things they want. So I think, like, as just kind of basic, just as a basic practice, to acknowledge what they do want, what they're asking for, and to have some type of strategy for them to get what they want.
Yeah, I think that's very useful too. Um, so I think that there's like totally two sides of that there. It's like, on one hand, we just have to listen. I think that's the answer. We just have to listen to what is appropriate in the moment, and there is no one right way. Because sometimes I think the answer is to be like, oh, the child is desiring something, and maybe it's even spontaneous, And sometimes we just feel okay about that. And it's like, that's fine. Let's just follow that bliss in that moment and say yes. And then there's other times when it seems like the guidance coming in or whatever is like, more on the other side, where it is, well, how can you manifest this yourself? How you're powerful. How can we make this happen? I think that's valuable too. But I definitely have seen how sometimes, if I'm sticking in a place of like, if it's always one way, if I'm stuck in always one way, then it becomes imbalanced almost. Like, you gotta stay present,
Yes. Yeah. That I think, that being present, listening, hearing what they're saying, and, try to come from that point of connection. Is this like yeah, sure. Or is this, okay, let's let me, I think you said it on one of the calls that I like, am I going to be the cheerleader or am I like the manager at this point, you know?
Yeah, I remember that. That statement speaks to me all the time still. That's such a relevant thing for where I am in life right now. All the time I get the message like, oh, don't forget that you're the cheerleader, and it's way more fun to be the cheerleader. It's much less serious.
Yeah. Did you say manager versus cheerleader, or did you use
I think I said
different
coach because it
coach?
has to do with sporting, but
Oh,
like
okay.
manager totally fits. But just because it's in the ball game of sports events. But yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I just had that happen this morning. Like, again, I wake up in the morning and the first thing coming through my head is how I'm going to manage my husband's business. I'm literally like, first thing in the morning, like, oh, hi, babe, let's game plan. Okay, so what are we doing here? Should I send out this? Should I do this? And then I literally felt so crappy. The energy that I'm coming from is just not resonant for me anymore at all. I had to take a shower and I had to take a nap. And then I woke up and finally was like, oh, that's just not even true for me. And was like texting him like, I think you should do whatever you feel like doing. And I'm just really excited to see how it turns out. Don't listen to anything I said this morning. Yeah. Like, it's interesting because I'm not necessarily even being mean to him. It's just the energy itself is so dense. Let me see if I can give an example of what it is. It's like, it's so like 3D, like strategically, what should we do that's going to bring the most financial gain? It's not heart-based at all. It's based off of like, oh, this would be a smart decision. Look at the market. Look at the way the economy is going. We might be looking at a recession. What about this? What about that? And then it's like I'm disconnected from my heart space of what's actually true. And we start to, if we were to follow that guidance, we would start going down a path that is that would drain us. It's not inspiring, and it's like the wrong path, but it's never really the wrong path. It's always has all the learning we need, but it wouldn't be the path of the highest truth, you know? And my husband feels it, and he kind of just gets quiet and is like, doesn't know what to say to me. And yeah, it's just so interesting. And I'm like, you know what? Despite where the world is going, despite even if we are looking at, you know, the illusion of impending doom, as sometimes it seems, I think you should still do what speaks to you. I think you should probably get trained on building those modular houses that you're really excited about. Not, you know, but what was my brother came to me with an idea of repairing and like refinishing and getting foreclosed houses like all together because we're looking at the possibility of a recession, and you're working with banks, which are pretty stable financial institutions if there was a recession. And we looked at it and we're like, we don't even want to do that. That's not something that we want to be a part of. We would rather let's go build instead of, but you see what I mean? Like one choice is like based off of survival and financial security. And another choice is based off of, oh, what do you actually want to do? How do you actually want to serve people? So it's nice.
Yeah, I like that pivot. And, you know, it's the name, you know, it's not about perfection at all. You know, we're either in alignment or we're not in alignment, and both are fine, both are okay, both are natural, and you know, both are useful. So but I like that cheerleader approach, and I think it's just something fun and lighthearted that if we do start to get dense or out of alignment or thinking like more strategically rather than heart-centered, the image of a cheerleader, the idea of that can just be a fun pivot for us, a fun way to kind of come back into alignment and be supportive rather than needing to do everything. I think as moms, I think a lot of us can just take that on. Let me do it. Let me fix it. Let me take over. Instead to empower them, whether it's a husband or a partner or a child, to empower them.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that we're really in this earth realm. I think we're learning how to play with energy, really. And so when we experiment with these just different vibrations of being, we start to see how that plays out within our reality, which really is us. Start to really show ourselves like, oh, wait a minute here. Like it's all reflecting me. Cool. So like as I shift from thinking that I need to manage everything and figure it all out and be the doer and the one who, you know, then reality starts to reflect back more of that. So it's like, do we really want to be the one who always has to be that dense and figure it all out and worry about everything? Because man, it'll show you that that's true. It'll show you the illusion of that being true. I've experienced that.
Yes. I'm going to come find the sun. It's getting a little cold here. Yes. So yeah, so that was a topic. Did you have anything coming up for you or anything you feel like you want to talk about?
Besides my son repetitively throwing everything on the ground as I walk,
Oh,
I'm gonna push him closer to the house so I can focus and go play with the garden. Let me think. You know what? See this little cob? Boundaries have been coming up for me a lot in relationships. It seems to be a theme. Hey, little guy, you want to play? Okay, maybe we can just edit this part out if we do post it. Hold on, let me just get him out so I can focus without being scattered. But yeah, boundaries seem to be. I think I'm gonna have to get a glass of water.
okay.
My son threw everything on the ground. Hold on. So yeah, I don't know if that speaks to you at all, but just like the art of boundary holding, whether that's with children or with just any relationship in your life, really. Um, for me, it seems like I've been taking a crash course in in boundaries, and it's been really fun because what life has sort of taken me through recently is like, oh, boundaries feeling really icky and like I'm resistant to them. Like I don't want to have boundaries and I don't want to have to do that whole thing and I don't want to be attached to boundaries. And there was sort of like this perception of like the fact that boundaries are just playful. They're not really a boundary. There's not really we're creating these things. It's not like they're part of our being or something like that, or they're like a construct in and of themselves. We're just like playing with these things. And when we create them, it's not even like I'm demanding that people hold them, which might sound weird. It's more like, hey, I'm asking and I'm letting you know like what I prefer. But if life shows me, if I have ultimately no control, we have ultimately no control of like other people or what manifests in our life, maybe from a higher mind, but not a conscious mind. So I've been learning to just flow through that when, let's say, a boundary is appearing to be crossed. It's like, oh, thank you for showing me that. Now I can just settle more into the knowingness of who and what I am and knowing that I'm full and whole and nothing can really take that from me, even when a seeming boundary is crossed. And at the same time, still not letting completely go of boundaries or becoming a doormat. It's like, oh, and I can still, do my best to uphold the life that I want to uphold. It's been like this really interesting balancing act. So there's that.
Interesting. When it comes, I feel like I went through like a boundary, like 101, 102 and like mastery course. For me, it was a lot when I started to become an alternative minded parent. I went through major, major boundaries with my family and geez, even friends. It was just like a big change for me. So, I mean, I think for me personally, when it comes to boundaries, and I don't know that this is right or wrong, but I just withdraw myself. I'm kind of like, this isn't feeling good. This isn't feeling comfortable. Can we change the subject? Can we do, you know, and then I just kind of withdraw, you know, and that's, it's a technique I learned in an energy class as well called Rise, Realize Your Sublime Energy. And it's all about managing your own energy field. So if you do notice you're out of alignment, so if someone crosses my boundary and I get out of alignment, it's my responsibility to come back into alignment. So usually what that looks like for me is just excusing myself. Like, you know, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable right now. I'm just going to excuse myself. And then I take myself out of the situation, get myself into balance using, you know, many ways, some deep breathing or some, you know, energy techniques. And then I just kind of come back into the situation and, you know, can we talk through that? You know, is it something that we need to, I guess, um, it, reshape the relationship, or is it just, you know, something that you can just let go of? I think relationships are always evolving, right? And if something is causing a boundary to be crossed, meaning I'm coming out of alignment, then I think it's worth, most of the time it's going to be worth talking about, because, you know, relationships are, well, they're for both, right? For us to learn more about who we truly are. So I think, yeah. So when you notice that a boundary has been crossed, do you feel like you're knocked out of alignment? I shouldn't say knocked, but can you feel yourself out of alignment?
Yeah, I think what is being felt is like the mind thinking that this isn't right, that this is harmful, this is not the way that it should be. I can give an example. So the
Yeah.
specific band, the lesson that was brought up for me is like, so we deal with we have a blended family, so we deal with other co-parents. And there's one co-parent in particular who seems to be allergic to boundaries in a very like rebellious way, almost like don't put that on me, because, and just not wanting to follow it for sake of feeling, I don't know, controlled or something, whatever it is. But so there's, let's see, there's been so many times where we've really had to like be firm and clear on what the boundaries are and enforce them, and otherwise it would just be mishmashy. But the one that is, we're finding that it's really difficult to actually enforce, is that she is supposed to communicate directly with my partner, like her ex, not use the children as messengers, because it puts a lot of stress on their shoulders, and it's too much for them to need to be the communicator between mom and dad, because mom doesn't want to talk to dad. So that's something that he's pretty adamant on, like, hey, you gotta talk to me. And then she interprets that as, oh, you just are so obsessed with me and can't get over me. And he's like, no, that's really not it. I really think that I don't want the kids growing up in a environment where they remember their childhood being, mom couldn't talk to dad and we had to figure everything out for them, and it's like tough. Anyhow, that's actually really hard to enforce, because she like bought them a phone and sent them home with a phone, and just blatantly refusing to talk to dad. And it seems like unless we go to court, you know, that the whole circumstances are like, it's almost like they don't matter as much as what it brings up within. So it's like, that's the circumstance. And what it makes me feel like is the kids are being harmed, and the universe is out of whack, and something is, we need to fight and all that. And that's where the balancing comes in. And it's like, oh, like I just forgot, things cannot go any other way besides what the way that they should go. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't try to enforce boundaries or uphold what we think is best. We do our best to do that. We do our best to not involve the kids in drama, and navigate these sort of tricky scenarios, you know, with the utmost consciousness that we can. No one's perfect here. However, when someone does cross those boundaries, like you're dealing with someone who you can't just say, oh, you know what, you're not upholding my boundaries, get out of my life. We don't have that option. So it's like, it's been the most interesting masterclass on boundaries, because you literally you can't get rid of it, but you can't make them do what you want. And then there's kids involved, so it brings up all of that upset. And I've just learned to settle into it, just to settle and know that things are going to work out the way that they should. It's okay. And on a practical level, what I'm typically guided to do from that state of being is to have is to have not completely transparent communication with the kids, because you don't want to put too much pressure on their shoulders, but to just openly discuss the feelings that they're feeling. How does that make you feel?
Right.
Are you okay? Are you okay with that? Yeah, you know what? I think that ideally, your dad will talk directly to your mom, but she loves you. And are you feeling okay about it? Let me know. Do you want to talk to somebody? Stuff like that. It's like, what else can you do in those
Yeah.
situations? Yeah. So
Yeah,
there's that.
I like that perspective. Right now, Valentina and I are transitioning. We're going to be moving soon, and she's got all kinds of emotions, and not the same as someone crossing a boundary, but it's just a situation that we're going through. So yeah, I mean, I think anything with the kids is just talking through it, because their life isn't going to be perfect. They're going to have boundaries crossed. They're going to have feelings of being scared or uncomfortable or being put in the middle or not understanding adult stuff. And I think that's just when you go to connection, connect, let them talk about it. Let them just work through those emotions that they're feeling without judging, or especially in your situation. I would think that would be the last thing you would want to do, is be like, oh, well, you're a mom, beep, 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 to start getting into a judgment or try to control the situation. I think that it's probably a family lesson for all of you on dealing with uncomfortable situations. And that will only bring greater bonding, to you all as a family. Maybe the children remember, we did go through, some rough patches with my real mom, with my mom and dad, but we worked through it, and we were able to talk through our feelings. And I think that gives them the sense of security that, no matter how I'm feeling, I'm going to be loved. No matter what's happening, they're going to be there for me. And the children in your particular situation are probably going to start to learn some of their own boundaries, where maybe at one point they may say, you know what, mom, I love, they're probably going to start to use some of the same reactions that you're using, like, mom, I love you so much. But this is just something that I'm not comfortable with. And do you want to talk to me about the feelings about me not being, they might end up.
Ooh, I lost you. I'll wait for you to come back. I'm sure it was a temporary glitch in Wi-Fi.
Yes. Sorry.
There you are. That's okay.
So it's probably going to end up being a huge lesson for the children as well, and an opportunity for bonding.
Yeah.
When my parents split up when I was in high school, and it was a nightmare. Both of them were encouraging us to take sides and to stop talking to the other person. So it was nothing at all about how we felt. It was all about, because they wanted the separation, the divorce, to go in their favor. And if they could get us to side, then that would help their court case. And it was a mess. And geez, I don't remember anyone ever asking how I felt. It was not about our feelings at all. It was about, the being pawns. So I think, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Went through that same, almost exactly. Yeah. Without details, same thing. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So.
And it was funny because, like I said, I'm one of four, and I kept bouncing back and forth because I just didn't, I couldn't pick sides, and I resonated with both of my parents on certain topics, but I wasn't fully one way. So I became like the traitor. And, I think that's where I got my nickname of being like selfish, because I was just, I couldn't choose. And that was, but anyways, yeah. So lessons learned, take that into now, just being present with the situation, even with your own emotions. For me right now, going through this transition of moving and housing applications and all this kind of stuff has been kind of stressful for me. So I feel like I've been a little bit more on edge, more anger, and kind of not as patient as usual. And that comes out as, being impatient and maybe kind of snappy. But I think it's natural for children to see their parents through all different emotions, and to connect, to keep the mindset of connection rather than correction. So what you could be saying to the kids is, I told you not to be the messenger. Now don't do that again. Don't come and tell me
Oh,
what you could
yeah.
start on correction, which would diminish the relationship. But I think as long as you keep that connection attitude of talking about it, and we'll get through this together. We'll build lasting relationships and allow the children to feel loved and trusted through any situation, which is really the ticket. That's really what we want them to feel, loved and honored through any situation.
Yeah, totally. I think that's the fear, right? Is that the kids are going to be caught in the middle. That's exactly. And it's interesting because everything is just so co-created. Like I see in this situation how it's a replay a little bit of my childhood in terms of like, okay, you're getting an opportunity to rewrite the script. And so my biggest opportunity, coming from a perspective of a child who went through a pretty nasty divorce where the parents were totally unconscious for a period of time, and used their children for their own unhealed wounds and what they wanted and all the things. I know that perspective really well. So when I am met with, it's basically my step kids, but they're my babies. They went through a similar experience, and I come in and I just see them because I'm like, I know I was.
Oh, I'm
wanted for
losing
these
you.
kids to. Oh, sorry. It's like
Okay.
it's like the last thing we want is for these kids caught in the middle, which is like exactly what ends up happening. It's like I can't control everything. Sometimes they are caught in the middle, and that's basically where I get triggered. That's where I find the boundaries and all the upset feelings, because I start thinking like, oh my goodness, everything is out of whack. That's right. It's like, this is not, no, they're going to be damaged. And there's the mind starts going. Go the way that we thought. And even on our end, we're not perfect. Sometimes we make mistakes and learn, and next time we're not going to do it that way, type of a thing. Yeah, so that's really been the masterclass, is like, okay, play with boundaries, have a playful heart, knowing that you can't go wrong here. We're all just doing our best. Even when significant others or whatever like seem to do things that we think are out of whack, we got to trust the path for the kids and show up for them. That's it. So yeah.
Yay. Good strategy.
Yeah.
And I think, the other piece of it is to just be real with ourselves, be real with what's going on, because if this situation is kind of a reflection of something that we went through in childhood, those are going to be the most sensitive pieces, but that presents the biggest opportunity of a healing. I think that's the biggest healing, is to learn from what happened, learn from your own trauma, and do it differently. I think that sees it full circle, to remember what it felt like as a child to be, to have that controlling style of parenting on you, and then to be able to do it different. That's for me, that full circle transformation is beautiful, and I think that's what keeps me on this path, of conscious parenting, and continuously healing myself, and being committed to following my joy, is it's just doing better, improving, and not unconsciously recreating the same traumas.
Yeah, totally.
So
Yeah.
yay, good for you for recognizing them. And it makes sense that it's a sensitive area for you. So of course, lots of self-care and reflection, and because there's opportunities for you as well. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think like we said before, like everything's energy. Like, I really almost think it's always about you. It's like the initial reaction and bring yourself to balance is actually what shifts situations. It's not actually in the doing. It's not like you can like memorize a script or like a way to be and then you bring to alignment through going through that process, and then naturally from there typically you're guided towards what's right for everyone involved, which is a process of unfolding. But it's been pretty obvious to me, like I didn't consciously choose to like be in a situation where I could replay some of the things that happened to me as a child and have a chance to like sort of heal that family trauma. It's not something that I was like, let me sit down and map this out. And you know what I mean? Life brings
Yeah.
it. It's so interesting.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Anyhow, it looks like we're about
Are we
4
getting close?
o'clock
Oh, wow. Yay. Yay.
already. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing and being so vulnerable and open. I appreciate it because I'm learning and it just feels good to be going through similar situations. So thank you for being here and being honest.
Yay. Yeah. The honesty is where
Um,
it's at.
yeah, so this is week 14. Next week we're going to take off. It's the day after the holiday. I've got some stuff going on. So we'll do call 15 in 2 weeks. If that sounds good, I'll
Sounds
schedule
great.
that.
Yeah.
The only announcement I have is that I'm continuing to blog. So I blog on YouTube, which is where I also post these videos. And my YouTube is Aqua Rose Life. We have a website.com or Aqua Rose Life, which is just nicknames for me and my daughter. So everyone is welcome to come see what we're doing. We document our unschooling life, and then I post some spiritual videos and also, all different stuff about parenting and self-directed education that seems valuable to share.
Awesome. Yeah, and for me, if you can hear me, because I'm right in the middle of a
Can hear.
Wi-Fi zone. Cool.
Yeah.
So I do offer one-on-one sessions. I'm a conscious parenting guide, but also like a spiritual awakening guide. So these are pay what you feel sessions, where basically we can just get on and chat in whatever fashion feels true for you. So it can be more laid back, or it can be really directional, just whatever really comes through. And there's no pressure because it is like a buy donation. It makes it really lighthearted and relaxed. But yeah, that's where I'm at. You can find me at my website, angelaroseyoung.com, or on Facebook, Angela Rose Young, Instagram, New Paradigm Parenting.
Yay. Awesome. All right. Well, have a great long weekend. And, I'll be excited to check in on boundaries and stuff. I'm sure you'll get some. The best thing is when you go through something like that, I feel like there's always like a big aha moment. And it's just a beautiful kind of healing. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear about that.
Yay. Thank you, Andrea. It's always nice to talk to you. I'll see you in a
Nice
couple
talking to you too.
weeks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.